What if I told you a millionaire buried a chest full of gold in the middle of the Rocky Mountains and left behind a cryptic poem as the only map? For over a decade, thousands searched. Almost 300,000 people from all over the country tried to find it by any means possible, and possibly going crazy in the process as well. Some even died trying to find that treasure, but the search was totally on. People were searching for like $3 million in the form of a treasure somewhere in the country. People would go nuts. People will try everything they need to do just to get that treasure. And in this story, we got multiple teams, which we're going to be talking about throughout this video. And don't forget, guys, to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's very important for this channel, guys. Let's go. And this is the story of Forrest Finn gold treasure. Forrest Finn was a decorated Air Force pilot turned millionaire art dealer who lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. For example, he used to work with people like Ralph Lauren and Mike Douglas. Then after he sold his art gallery, he gets diagnosed with kidney cancer. So with his last efforts, he wanted to grab anything he could and make a treasure chest and bury it somewhere and start one of the biggest treasure hunts of the century, basically. In 2010, at the age of 79, he announced something that stunned the world. He had hidden a chest filled of gold, jewels, and rare artifacts somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, 10 inches by 10 inches and 5 inches deep, full of gold, rubies, diamond, and so much more good stuff you cannot even think of, guys. And whoever finds this treasure gets to keep it all. And the clues came in the form of a memoir that he wrote himself. And basically in that memoir, it was a poem that you had to read to get the clues to go to the treasure. And that poem was 24 lines long, filled with cryptic clues. And here we go for the poem. As I have gone along in there and with my treasures bowl, I keep my secret where and hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Put it below the home of the brown. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is drawing ever nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek. Just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down your quest to seize. But tarry sent with marvel gaze. Just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answer I already know. I've done it tired and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good. Your efforts will be worth the cold. If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. And from here, the treasure was set and let the hunt begin. Thousands of people all over the country were obsessing over every line of that poem. People were reading through the poem, the interviews that he was making. Every bit that they could find about Forrest, they would read it and they would start to interpret it, and they go like, okay, he might have lived there, so he might have hinted us to go towards there and stuff like that. Like, people went absolutely crazy. Thousands of people obsessed over every word. Forums popped up, Reddit threads exploded, and treasure hunting became an addiction. The treasure could be anywhere from New Mexico to Montana. That's over 1,000 miles of rugged, dangerous wilderness. And quickly enough, the whole country was hooked into this story and hooked into knowing who is actually gonna discover this treasure, you know? Because it took a while to find this treasure. And hear me out until the end, because there's a twist up until the end. This story is absolutely crazy. Like, it has twists. As soon as you turn to the right, to the left, boom, you get twisted up until the end, where you still get twisted, you know? And so Forrest himself in this whole story started to get more publicity. He started to get more interviews, and he also started getting more clues to people throughout those interviews. And just like I said, with thousands of people coming to the race, people with all sorts of backgrounds come into the hunt and everything, that's what was exciting at the same time, you know? And in that race, we have, just like I said before, multiple teams. In the first team, we got Cynthia, And this woman is very resilient and confident. She is a retired woman that has too much time to spend going outdoors looking for the treasure. And adventurers like her got super excited, and she was completely obsessed with the hunt, and she actually made friends with Forrest, and we'll be talking about that throughout the video too. She started her adventure in New Mexico in the San Antonio Canyon, where she started to follow the clues. And then for our second team, we got the Hearst family, the trailer park redneck hunters. And for them, the rednecks, they got super excited about finding a couple $1 million in the form of a treasure somewhere in the woods. And it was completely an opportunity for them to make some money. And as soon as they found the poem, they actually started reading it. And from reading it, they were actually remembering what an area that they knew about looked like. And from reading it, they're like, hold on a second, this exactly looks like this spot. And then as soon as they read the next part, the next line, they will go like, yeah, and as soon as you go down that road, it leads you to something that looks like this that says in the poem, you know? So from all of those clues, boom, they were like, yes, we actually know where the treasure is, so let's go get it. And the place that we're talking about is a place called Kerwin in Wyoming, and it's actually right close to where they were. And just like Forrest said it, it is in the Rocky Mountains, but these mountains spread on multiple different states, like Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, Idaho, and New Mexico. So there is a lot of ground to cover, but the clues were there to guide everybody. There is also a lot of danger in the Rocky Mountains, from rapids to different altitudes to wildlife like bears, cougars, and dangerous animals everywhere. It's not easy to go there, you know? And through different clues, synonyms, and interpretations, the Hertz got a name of a place that was called the Lower Sunshine Reservoir. And from there, they followed the clues into the second clues, and from there, from the second clue into the third one, you know, literally going through the clues through the poem in real life. And then we get to our third player in Texas, called Justin Posey. And for him, he became a complete obsession. As soon as he knew about the treasure hunt, he couldn't stop thinking about the treasure hunt. Whenever he was not working or doing another project or something, he was treasure hunting day and night, to the point where he even started going outdoors a lot too. And then he also started training his dog to recognize and sniff bronze up to 4 feet down the ground, which is pretty impressive. And all of that just so that he can go on the hunt himself and find the treasure, you know? He started where water is warm, and of course he follows the clues one after the other, and he gets his own interpretations from the poem and the clues he gets. And that is also a big part about this. Different interpretations of the poem is where a bunch of people get misled and people get lost sometimes by, for example, leading, oh, the sky was blue that day, whatever, the sky was warm, whatever. People will go like, oh, okay, so if I am in this situation, that means that something in here must be warm. They would interpret it as the rock must be warm, so the rock tells me to go this way. It's sometimes that crazy, not for Justin, for example, but for other people. We'll see throughout the video, some other people did some shit. And so for Justin, he follows the clues to a canyon called the Sunlight Creek in Wyoming. He goes around following interpretations of the clues, but at the end, it led him to nothing. After walking for a little bit with his brother trying to find the treasure, nothing. And after a few years of looking around and looking around, people were getting frustrated because they were still looking for the treasure, but at the same time they were going nuts because they could not find the treasure. Like their common sense in a way that would lead them to believe something out of the poem and out of the like the environment that they are in. Everything for them was kind of false, and they had to go back on their tracks again and again and again and again, and they would lose money and again and again and again, to the point where some people were actually getting themselves demotivated from the hunt. But not all of them. And anybody who actually has a question can, of course, take Forrest's email, and you can actually send him an email and he will respond to you. Like, for example, if you tell him, hey, I think I found this spot, and you just take a picture, you can send him the picture in that email, and he will reply to you like, no, this is not it, and all of that. So like, he's pretty helpful in the whole situation. And he was also showing up, just like I said, showing up a lot on TV, and every time a reporter would ask him for a clue, and he would give something like, the treasure is not associated with any structure, or this treasure is not in a grave, or the treasure is not in Idaho and Utah. Forrest was basically playing everybody while keeping them hooked on the hunt, and every word he said became like holy grail, and it was literally absolute bananas. And over the years, people looked absolutely everywhere, in every state where this treasure could be, you know, and all the spots they could check. So Justin started doing more analysis, and he started actually doing more analysis on the micro expressions that Forrest Finn has when he's talking about specific subjects. And from everything that he found out something, and that something means the Yellowstone National Park. Cynthia, in her way, would go to Forrest's house to speak of different possibilities just to get some clues, you know.
Has the location you have chosen for the treasure always had a special meaning to you, or did it become a special place later in life?
Well, Andy, always is a long time. I'll just say that where I hid the treasure is a very special place to me, and I really don't want to elaborate on that.
And a lot of people would come to his grandson's house to talk about the hunt. The Hearsts were at the end of their hunt, but they kept on looking for clues day and night, and then people found a keyword that would help them decipher the whole poem. And with that keyword that would decipher the whole thing, you can actually read something completely else. And for them, all the clues are leading them to the right location, to the Cascade Creek. They get to the location and all the clues are aligned to the point where the only suspicious thing was a big ass boulder. And guess what they did with that boulder? Yes, the boulder had to go. But not to forget one thing, people were actually risking their lives in the total wilderness, you know? And we are not in a fictional world like in the One Piece where you can easily go and do whatever the heck you want to do. No. If you go out there, you might lose your life. So a lot of people would actually venture themselves into areas of the country that they've never been, and areas of the country where it's pretty much dangerous to venture in, you know? And that's why people started dying. In Colorado, a man called Randy Beaulieu, who was found dead in Santa Fe in 2016. And from here, people started asking questions. Should Forrest Finn come out and give the location so that people stay safe? Everybody was scared the chase could stop, but everything kept on going like nothing happened. And after that again, a series more people actually died too. We've got Paris Wallace that died near Carson National Forest in 2017, and then Eric Oshby in Colorado in 2017 too. And from all of these deaths, people were asking actually Forrest, hey Forrest, maybe it's time to actually stop the race because now people are actually dying from it, you know? And that's the problem. Is it the fault of Forrest of people dying because of everything that he started, basically, like the hunt and all of that? Or is it the fault of the people who died, you know? That's a weird question, guys, to ask, but let me know down in the comments below what do you think about this question and answer it, and we'll see what people are basically saying, you guys, you know? And even the police got into it, but Forrest did not budge whatsoever. But at that point, since people knew that the police were contacting Forrest and telling him, hey, it might be a great time to stop the race and all of that, stop the hunt, people started calling the police officer that was in charge of everything, and they were threatening him at that point, like completely crazy, telling him, hey, you should mind your own business and not get into this because we will get you and all of that, like crazy stuff. And even Justin himself sent a letter to Forrest telling him that you should not call it off. This is not what they were dreaming of when they started the hunt. And if anything, the death just brought more attention and more people to the hunt. For example, in Southern California, this pilot called Lou Boyer thought he was the one to find it, especially since he's a pilot and he has a look on the ground from way up there when he's piloting. He actually was like, yeah, I might have a shot on finding out where the treasure is. And with all the clues he got and the interpretations he made, he gets to Beaver Creek in New Mexico. And he thought he was going to take the family, go grab the treasure quick, and come back home by 9 p.m. Amateur. He gets to a private property, so he couldn't go any further. But as soon as he got back home, he started obsessing and doing way more research because he was now hooked into the race. Even the Hearsts, they started going at it hard for multiple days, just digging and working on that boulder. Everything you could think of, they tried. But that boulder was not budging whatsoever. And for Justin, everything led to Yellowstone Park. All the clues and all of the data, even down to the past history of Forrest. Everything led him to Yellowstone, to a specific area with a specific rock. So Justin decides to go on his adventure to find that rock. And through a lot of hardship and efforts through the forest, they found the rock, but no gold. Cynthia also, through a couple of clues from Forrest, she went towards Yellowstone to look for the treasure, because basically he guided her to go basically towards the Yellowstone. And I'm sorry, but Cynthia completely cheated. She got real clues from Forrest, and Forrest was telling her this is only in between us. That tells me she was cheating. I don't care. And don't forget, Yellowstone is dangerous. A lot of bears, so watch out. And on the other side, the Hearsts finally moved their boulder, but no treasure under the rock, which was very heartbreaking for them. And with that, even more tragedy, because Justin actually lost his brother, the brother that was going with him to search for the treasure. And at that point, he actually started to double down on his researches to go and find that treasure, because that was the only closure he could get with the death of his brother. But at that point in time, even the family of Forrest started to get death threats from people that were obsessing over the hunt. And with people interpreting it some way, other people are actually, of course, interpreted other way, like a very dangerous way. That's what I mean. Like, for example, going to Forrest's house and doing something illegal to try and get in and do something crazy, you know? And basically a dude thought that's what he had to do, and Forrest's family dealt with the consequences, and Forrest was not even there at that point, you know? Then Forrest's granddaughter also had a stalker, a weird and creepy one called Paco. And Paco is very disturbing, because to him the treasure is Forrest's granddaughter, and as soon as he finds her, he will take her. And when they decided to file a restraining order, he quickly got out of it and came directly in front of the property again. And every time that he would get caught up, he would get released at some point, and he would always come back to the house to stalk her again and again and again. And all of these factors made Forrest make his last interview, and he also says that the treasure will be actually found soon. And so at that point, all of the hunters really doubled down, because they're like, oh, what? The treasure is gonna be found? What? That means we really need to go, and I need to be the one who finds the treasure, you know? The Hearsts found another position, and they went to it. They thought the treasure was not a box of treasure, but probably a symbolic treasure. And at that location, they found the head of a bear made in rock, and they sent it to Forrest. And right after that, boom, the race gets called. That was it. Somebody found the treasure in 2020. So literally after a full decade, from 2010 to 2020, craziness. But the treasure has been found. The man who found it is called Jack Stoof, a medical student from Michigan. He followed the clues and found the treasure buried in Wyoming. But for months, he stayed anonymous, fearing backlash, lawsuits, and even obsession. Every hunter was losing it though, because they did not understand what was going on. They were like, how the hell somebody found it? Who found it? Because for people, you know, they lost a lot of money trying to find this treasure and all of that. So when they were not the real winners of this whole hunt, they were going kinda cuckoo. But they were all pissed. Hunters were believing this was a hoax. Others think it was solved too easily. Lawsuits followed and questions were raised, and people will not let it go. But then Forrest Finn released 2 pictures of the gold chest, and still the hunters didn't believe it, believing it is completely a hoax, completely lunatics, because I still believe until today, they believe the treasure was not found yet. And Forrest was getting tons and tons and tons of phone calls from fans and hunters that are calling him like, is the race really finished? Like, what about the money and the relationships and everything? Like, what's going on and all of that? But he couldn't comfort them because, you know, he's not responsible for people's choices. He's literally just the one who created the hunt, but he doesn't owe nobody nothing, you know? Because your choices are your choices. But people were obsessing for a real solution to the treasure because they didn't get that many clues and that many details about what truly happened up until the end, you know? And conspiracies were flying up and left. For example, the fact that Forrest could have sent, for example, his grandson that's called Shiloh to go get the treasure and come back with it. That way they end up the hunt once and for all. That was one of the conspiracies, which of course was not true, you know. But then, just to calm everybody, they disclosed the state. And the state was Wyoming, where the treasure was. But that did not help at all. People started even filing lawsuits against Forrest. People were getting absolutely nuts. And that's what I call gold fever. I mean, hey, literally people were going nuts over finding some gold. That's gold fever, you know? And people wanted to know the asshole that found the treasure. But then at the age of 90, Forrest passes away, like literally from a heart attack. R.I.P. to Forrest Finn. He basically was the creator of one of the best treasure hunt of our century. And he totally deserves the role of the creator of literally the biggest treasure hunt, basically just like One Piece. He's literally just like Goldie Roger. And from Shiloh's lips, the grandson, he basically says that he died from a heart attack with no drama, no fuss, no nothing. And he thought it was going to be the end of story. But you don't know people. People actually started to call the lawyers to see if actually Forrest's left them something, like to the fans and all of that. Like, what kind of craziness? How do you want Forrest to even remember everybody from the fans and all of that and expressly say their name in his will and all of that? Like, people were losing it just to get some gold, you know? And people were getting pissed because he didn't leave them anything at the end, you know? Even after dying, people were still reading the poem, trying to get some clues and trying to do some shit. Like, for example, Forrest's family is still getting a bunch of letters to their house saying literally like the craziest things you can even think of, up until they couldn't even take it any longer and the real founder of the treasure came out of the anonymously, and he came out just to get some relief for everybody, and they released all the pictures and all the documents, and the winner is Jack Stoof. And guess what? The conspiracies came for him, for Jack, because they don't like the finder.
It's pretty difficult to put into words how disgusted I am, how depressed I am.
The location was not given, but people gathered a bunch of information about where the location might be. And in Wyoming, you gotta go to the Yellowstone National Park, to the Maids Canyon in the 9-mile hole, and then you go into the woods. The blaze was a tree where the treasure is under, so basically 500 feet from the main road. Pretty crazy. In the vicinity of these beautiful outdoors, in the middle of the trees, and with a little bit of resilience and courage, you can pinpoint exactly the spot where the treasure was hidden. And go check out the full documentary on Netflix. It is absolutely mesmerizing to watch that whole documentary. It's pretty much 3 episodes. You can do it in one night, I'm telling you. And from here, that spot became like a holy grail where people could go and repent on Forrest Finn and his treasure, meaning they made it to the end of the race. They just got the one piece. And now for the twist. There was an auction, and Justin took part into that auction. He put a number for that auction, and he was pretty sure of himself up until the end, where, you know, he got outbid and somebody else got the treasure, and now he couldn't afford to grab the treasure for himself. But he didn't stop there. Everybody loves going on treasure hunts, and from that perspective, he thought it could be fun to actually keep something going, like a new hunt, for example. And that's where he started on getting on contact with people and all of that, and he was actually able to get in contact with the people who bought the treasure, and he was able to buy some of that treasure for himself. And from there, he decided to get that treasure and get a little bit more treasure and combine it into a new treasure box. And hide it somewhere east. And through the next Flick show, there are clues, so if you are interested in the chase, go check it out. I don't know if it's Forrest who was a masterpiece or a genius who thought of everything from the beginning, or it was just a pure series of coincidences that aligned perfectly with the treasure hunt. But one thing is for sure, Forrest's treasure hunt captured the imagination of almost everybody and reminded everybody that real treasure and real adventures still exist. So would you have gone on the search? Would you have risked it all? Everything for the gold? Let me know down in the comments below, guys. And if you like this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and your boy will see you in the next story. Peace.